Hey AP Psych students, I'm sorry that I'm not there with you today as you're taking your first FRQ, but I didn't want to leave you guys out feeling stressed, and so I wanted to take a second to go over my expectations for your first FRQ before you guys actually complete one this afternoon. So there's two types of AP Psych FRQs. We ended last class by talking about this, but I just want to go over this one more time. So there's the type 1, which is concept application. That's what you guys are going to be doing today for the most part. Then there's type 2, which is research design. Your FRQ today will also have some research design. My goal in providing you with an FRQ that has a little bit of both is that I want you to have experience with both of these styles so that we can make sure we work really hard over the next couple weeks to get you guys to a point where you're maximizing the amount of points you can get on your FRQ. So type 1, whenever it says something like explain how each of the following concepts, that's when you're going to define and apply. So you're literally going to define the term that you see here and find how it applies in this situation. So essentially you define it and then you come up with the example in the scenario. For type 2 research design, it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to ask you to actually answer questions related to whatever the experiment is that it's presenting. So in that case, you won't necessarily have to define the terms, although it always helps to define them, but it's more about explaining whatever it is that they're asking about. So what is the most appropriate conclusion that can be drawn based on the figure above? You don't need to define to me what a conclusion is. Instead, you just need to say something like, the most appropriate conclusion that can be drawn from the above figure is blank, and actually put in your response. Is that an increase in stress level correlates with an increased number of absences due to illness? Boom, that's an appropriate conclusion that you can draw because the dots are close by the line. You can even include that because all of the dots are centering around the middle line. So today you're going to be doing a little bit of both. Some will have you answering questions, some will have you defining. So today what I really want you to focus on is when you receive your FRQ, I want you to do three things. First, I want you to look at the prompt and I want you to work it. So I want you to read the FRQ prompt. I want you to mark it up. I want you to underline key concepts and key terms. By underlining it, it draws your attention. So when you actually go to answer the FRQ, you'll be able to use what you've underlined as basically a shortcut. Number 2, sketch it. So this does not need to take 4 to 7 minutes by any means. This is that little chart that I was talking about last class, where literally you just have D and A at the top, and then you have the list of the terms, and you check off that you have defined and applied each one. We talked about how this is important because sometimes in our brains, we're so focused and we're trying so hard on the response that we think of the definition and the application, but we can't write it down as fast as we can think it. So we think that we wrote it on the paper, but in reality, it was just in our heads. So this is a great way to make sure that everything you're thinking actually ends up on the paper. The third step is to actually write your FRQ. So in total, this whole process is 25 minutes. You guys will have 25 minutes today to complete your FRQ. The reason being is because you get assigned 2 FRQs on the AP exam, and you have 50 minutes to complete the 2. You're just given both, and they say 50 minutes, go. But when we're practicing, I give you one, and I say 25 minutes, go. The goal of this is to get you guys familiar with the timing. So when you actually go to write your FRQ, I want you to focus on a couple things. So concise handwriting, not so important. Underlining is important as the person is going to grade your FRQ. If you've underlined the vocab word, it draws their attention as to what they're trying to give you credit for. Then you want to space them each out into their own paragraph, and you want to define and apply each term. So I'm going to give you an example. So here we have Dr. Shepard goes to bed until very late, normally between 1 and 2 a.m., because he has difficulty falling asleep at night. Before he goes to bed, he tries to wear himself out by running around the block multiple times. He then treats himself to a beer and some slices of pizza while preparing for the next day's surgeries. So explain how each of the following relates to Dr. Shepard's situation. It gives you 8 terms. I kind of talked about this a little bit last class, but I just want to refresh your memory before you jump in today. So if I was going to be writing this myself, this is how I would write it. So first paragraph is the first term, and I've underlined it so that the grader knows that in this paragraph, I am talking about the term depressant. So first I define it. A depressant inhibits the functions of the central nervous system. It relaxes the body and lowers neurotransmission levels. That's my definition. Your definition should be 1 to 2 sentences max. Then you come up with the application. So what in this example, what in this scenario is a depressant? And in this case, it was the beer that Dr. Shepard was drinking. So you could say something like, in this scenario, or directly identify something in the scenario. So Dr. Shepard drinks beer every night, which acts as a depressant to his nervous system. That specificity makes it clear that you know what you're talking about. If you just say beer is a depressant, that's not a good enough answer. You need to say, in this scenario, the beer that Dr. Shepard drinks depresses his nervous system, acts as a depressant. That specificity is key. So then the circadian rhythm is the body's biological clock. It regulates bodily rhythms of wakefulness on a 24-hour cycle. So that's my definition. Dr. Shepard's circadian rhythm is affected negatively because he sleeps late and must wake up early. So that's me directly identifying where in the scenario circadian rhythm is talked about or affected. So as you go through, each of these is a separate paragraph. You underline the key terms, and the more specific, the better. So you guys are now going to go through and actually do your own FRQ practice. And as you're doing that FRQ, I want you guys to think about how I'm going to be grading it. This is what I use as a rubric. So I look for the definition and the application. It's an all or nothing score, so you either get full points or no points. So being specific is going to be your best friend. If there's a term that you do not know, that's okay. Skip it or give it your best shot. If you are feeling like you might know the answer, you might not, definitely answer it with whatever you think it might be. As you guys are going through this FRQ, you'll get the prompt, you'll get a lined piece of paper, and my requirement is that you use a blue or a black pen and that you really try and do your best. I understand that this is our first time doing this together, and so I want to make sure that you are really focusing in and trying this independently so that I can give you the best feedback possible in order to make sure you guys are super ready next month for your AP exam. Okay? So with that being said, good luck on your FRQ. You guys are all going to do so fantastic, and I can't wait to see you guys next week, and I'll be sure to give you some feedback on this when I return.